Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. And other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
The first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and right and clean and nice-looking guy. I mean, it's
Unlike the African.
The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street.
To remove judicial discretion for those who, quote, don't meet the middle-class criteria of susceptibility to rehabilitation.
They are beyond the pale, many of those people. They literally have not been socialized. They are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. Let the FBI agents buy weapons as powerful as the drug cartels had. They're getting beat up. Increase the penalties. Increase them. The penalties. Increase them. I would put the son of a gun in jail. Put them to death. Senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden. You got a gun? You commit a felony? 10 years. We already have it 5 years. Minimum mandatory. Judge can't say, you know, you had it in your pocket, you never intended to use it, we're only going to give you 1 year. Judge has to say 5 years. Well, he wants to make it 10 or 20 or 60. We can work that out.
He wanted, from the crack epidemic of the 80s to the crime wave of the 90s to the post 9/11, the Biden-Thurmond Violent Crime Control Act of 1991 would have increased the maximum sentence for 44 crimes to include the death penalty.
A wag in the newspaper recently wrote, Biden has made it a death penalty offense for everything but jaywalking.
Republicans one-upped Biden by adding 46 capital crimes.
I'm going to make it for 46 crimes. Biden says make it for 51. We're going to get tough.
So he proposed 53. Then he presented the final version of the legislation.
60 new death penalties, brand new, 60. There are 70 additional enhancements of penalties, i.e. you go to jail longer.
After his disastrous 1987 presidential campaign, Biden had staged his political comeback, in part by becoming a media darling on issues of policing and crime, and he led the fight to pass the landmark 1994 crime bill under Bill Clinton.
When I wrote the original bill that started this whole process, the so-called Biden crime bill, I didn't call a liberal confab and write it. I didn't call any big society people and write it. I called the cops.
A Democratic president